Before we dive in, viewer discretion is advised. This content is for entertainment. What happens when a titan of comedy, a living legend, steps into the spotlight of a morning show, only to be ambushed by a host with a clear and calculated agenda? The air crackled with tension the moment Eddie Murphy entered the set. But no one, absolutely no one, could have predicted the sheer force of the collision that was about to unfold between him and Joy Behar. This was more than just a celebrity interview gone wrong. It became a lesson in how quickly a conversation can explode when professional respect is tossed aside. He entered the studio with his signature smile, extending a hand to the panel with the polished grace of a man who has navigated the entertainment world for over 4 decades. Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, and the other co-hosts greeted him with genuine warmth, their excitement palpable at having an icon of his caliber on their show. "We've been waiting for this all week," Whoopi said, beaming. But underneath that greeting, something different was brewing. Eddie, with his million-dollar confidence, was about to face it head-on. The interview began as expected. Eddie charmed the audience with his trademark humor, telling stories about the cast and crew he'd worked with, showing the kind of passion and respect he has for the art of comedy. Each anecdote was a perfect blend of genius and humility, and the audience couldn't get enough. "I still feel that spark," Eddie said, his eyes sparkling under the studio lights. "There's magic in creating something that makes people feel, something that lets them escape." Sarah Haynes leaned forward, genuinely agreeing. "That integrity shines through in your work. You've connected with so many generations because true comedy," she added, "speaks a universal language." Eddie nodded, his expression thoughtful. "People need to laugh. If I can offer that release, that moment of joy, then I've done my part." But then, something shifted. Joy Behar, who had been sitting quietly, suddenly leaned forward, her eyes narrowing with calculated intent. "Speaking of comedy," she interjected, her voice sharp, "don't you think some of your past work might be considered problematic by today's standards?" The sudden coldness in her words changed the entire atmosphere. Eddie's smile didn't vanish, but it tightened, a slight crack in his composure as he absorbed the unexpected jab. The other hosts exchanged uncomfortable glances. Joy was taking this interview off the rails. "I'm not sure I follow," Eddie said, maintaining his calm demeanor, his voice still steady, though clearly thrown off. Joy leaned in, her eyes gleaming with the thrill of confrontation. "Your old stand-up routines, the ones that are now considered offensive. Don't you think an apology is owed to your audience for those?" Whoopi quickly intervened, her tone more gentle. "Maybe we should focus on Eddie's new project." But Joy wouldn't back down. "No, this is an important conversation," she insisted, her voice ringing with self-righteousness. "In this age of accountability, shouldn't public figures be held responsible for their past actions?" Eddie's posture stiffened, the easygoing guest replaced by a man defending his legacy. "Let me be clear, Joy," Eddie began, his voice firm. "I've been in comedy for over 40 years. My job is to push boundaries, and I've done that." "And at whose expense?" Joy shot back, her voice rising. Eddie didn't flinch. "Comedy is a mirror to society. And if we start erasing art based on the changing opinions of today, where does it stop?" Joy smirked, clearly feeling she had the upper hand. "So, you have zero regrets about any of it?" "I stand by my body of work," Eddie replied, his voice unwavering. "I've evolved, as we all do, but I'm not going to apologize for being a part of the history of comedy." The tension in the room was palpable. The audience sat in stunned silence, watching as the battle unfolded on stage. The other hosts exchanged anxious looks, unsure of how to stop the escalating confrontation. "That's a convenient way to sidestep responsibility," Joy sneered. Eddie's jaw clenched. "Convenient?" he said, his voice low but sharp. "You think it's convenient to be ambushed on live TV? To have my entire life's work twisted into a narrative you wrote before I even sat down?" Joy's voice trembled with indignation. "I'm asking the tough questions." "No," Eddie shot back, his voice now commanding. "You're making accusations. Do you hold every comedian to the same standard, or is it just the one sitting in this chair today? The other hosts froze, their attempts to intervene growing futile. But Eddie wasn't done. He turned to Joy, locking eyes with her. "Let me ask you something, Joy," he said, his voice cold. "In your long career, have you ever said anything that someone, somewhere, might find offensive? Have you ever told a joke that didn't quite land? A remark that you regret years later? Because if we're going to start publicly auditing everything, then every single page in our history gets examined. Don't you agree?" Joy's face turned a deep red as Eddie's words hit their mark. She clearly hadn't expected him to turn her attack back on her so effectively. The smug expression she wore moments ago vanished, replaced by the look of someone who had miscalculated in the most catastrophic way. "That's different," she sputtered, her voice faltering. "Is it?" Eddie countered, his eyebrow raised skeptically. "So, you're telling me you've never cracked a joke about someone's appearance, where they're from, or what they believe in? You've never said something that could have made someone feel small or out of place?" Whoopi, sensing the conversation was spiraling, tried to step in. "Maybe we should all take a moment and remember that we're supposed to be on the same team here." But Eddie wasn't having it. "No, Whoopi," he said, his voice calm but intense. "This is exactly what we need to talk about. This right here is the perfect example of the poisonous double standard choking real conversation in this country." Joy scoffed. "Double standards? You're being a bit dramatic, Eddie." "Dramatic?" Eddie let out a bitter laugh. "Joy, you set me up on this stage to tear me down, and now you're calling me dramatic for pointing out your hypocrisy." The studio audience, once silent, could now feel the heat of the moment. They were witnessing something raw and real, something that couldn't be scripted. "This is the problem with people like you, Joy," Eddie continued, his voice rising. "You believe you can say whatever you want, attack anyone you like, and when they dare to defend themselves, you just call them a paranoid or a dramatic. Well, I'm not playing by that playbook anymore." Joy, now visibly shaken, struggled to regain her footing. "I didn't mean to," she started, but Eddie wasn't done. "Of course you didn't mean to," he said bitterly, "but you did it anyway. You wanted to set me up for this. You wanted to tear down everything I've built, and you're not going to get away with it. Not on my watch." The tension was now so thick you could almost taste it. The rest of the hosts were visibly uncomfortable, unable to stop the verbal battle that was now beyond their control. "I'm not overreacting," Eddie said, his voice now low but filled with intensity. "I'm not going to sit here and let you tear down everything I've worked for, everything I've created, just because it doesn't fit your narrow view of what's acceptable." "You want to talk about responsibility, Joy? Let's talk about the responsibility you have to respect the people who've built this industry, the people who've given you your platform." "I'm not apologizing for my legacy, and I'm not apologizing for bringing laughter to the world. And if that's what you're demanding, then you can forget it." The producers were frantically signaling for a commercial break, but there was no stopping this train. Eddie had hit his limit, and Joy was in full retreat, realizing she had pushed a cultural icon too far. "I don't think this is working," Sarah said quietly, trying to bring some sense of calm to the table. But Eddie shot back. "There was no breakdown, Sarah. This was deliberate." Joy knew exactly what she was doing. She had a script, and she was going to stick to it. But she underestimated one thing: me. I'm not here to play into her narrative. I'm here to defend my life's work. I'm here to show that I'm not some punching bag for her self-righteous crusade. Joy, now completely defeated, stammered, "I think you're being paranoid." "Paranoid?" Eddie's voice erupted, filling the entire studio. "You have just spent 20 minutes tearing down my career, my legacy, and my integrity, and now you have the nerve to call me paranoid for noticing? You thought you could gaslight me, twist the truth, and I would just accept it. Well, guess what, Joy? It didn't work." The audience, once silent, was now hanging on every word, fully aware they were witnessing an interview unlike anything they had seen before. "This is exactly the kind of hostility I'm talking about,"